Scott from Covering Cancer. I was just wondering how, in your perspective, how the New World Order uses cancer as a tool, and also how people go about protecting themselves from this tool.
Okay, let me ask how the New World Order is, what kind of a tool?
Using cancer.
Using cancer.
Like a tool, and also how people can protect themselves from this tool.
Wow, got a couple of good questions here. How about asking me something simple? Well, okay, we know that the New World Order, using that term, that's our term for the evening, is very focused on population reduction. I think everybody knows that. And the question is, how are you going to reduce population? Well, they're very clear on that. They've written papers on it, they hold conferences on it, they've published books on it, and generally what they're planning to do to reduce population is to use a combination of tactics, one of which is to reduce longevity, and the other is to reduce fertility. And in the category of reducing longevity, it's clear that they don't want to keep old people, like myself, around when they can't be productive, when they can't pull plow or something like that, as the old Soviets used to say. So they let them die. I think some of the drugs and some of the additives to our food supply and our water supply are, I suspect that they're really, maybe that's not the primary reason, but it's certainly maybe a secondary reason, is because it makes people sick, reduces their immune system, makes them less resistant to terminal diseases like cancer and so forth. So in general, I would have to say that I agree with you totally that the New World Order is probably using a high cancer rate when I'm sure, if I know what the control for cancer is, do you think that they don't know what the control for cancer is? It's inconceivable to me. And yet they will work hard to prevent the knowledge which I have and which I try and share with everyone, prevent that from hitting the mainstream. Why would they do that? Well, it could be argued because it's the profit motive, because the sale of less effective therapies, of chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery, that those treatments are more profitable, therefore it's just a matter of money. But I think that it's also because they really want to reduce the population.
And what people can do?
Oh, what people can do to protect themselves from cancer. Yeah, that's really the main question, isn't it? Well, that's easy. Get my book. But short of that, the theory presented in the book is that cancer is a deficiency disease. It's not caused by something. It's caused by the lack of something. It's caused by the lack of an essential food compound in our diet. And that something is called amygdalin in its natural form. When it's purified and concentrated and used in cancer treatment, it's called aleotrope. It's basically the same substance. It's found in nature. And in countries or cultures or societies where the natural diet is rich in this amygdalin, you find practically no cancer. In societies like modern industrial societies where cancer is the highest, check the native food, no amygdalin. And the two are directly related, and you can prove that. And so the answer to how you protect yourself, and number one, is avoid to the best of your ability being exposed to cancer-producing forces, such as don't smoke so many cigarettes, don't live under a high-tension power line, obvious things like that. Reject a few of those dental x-rays now and then. Just try and reduce your exposure to cancer-causing forces. Clean up your diet so it doesn't have so much of these toxic things in your body that are cancer-causing. And then having done that, that was the negative thing. The next thing is make sure that you eat foods that are rich in amygdalin. And they're all over the place, but you won't like them because they're bitter to the taste. Last time you ate an apple seed, your grandmother probably said, "Don't eat that. It's got cyanide in it." And she was right. It's bitter. But I'll close this off by telling you about the cyanide connection. The cyanide is really one of the things that you want. This amygdalin molecule is made up of 4 components. It's got one component of cyanide, 1 of benzaldehyde, and 2 of sugar, glucose. So you've got these 4 elements locked into a compound, into a molecule. And one of them is cyanide. And people say, "Oh, you're not going to take that, are you? Cyanide kills people." Well, yeah, it does. But did you know that vitamin B12 has cyanide in it? You know the name of vitamin B12? It's cyanocobalamin. Yeah, it's got cyanide in it. In it. It's not cyanide, it's got cyanide in it. That's a whole different thing. The only thing you have to worry about is pure cyanide. That's a gaseous form, and that's toxic, it's deadly. But when it's locked with other elements in a compound, it's not deadly, it's something else. It's vitamin B12, or amygdalin, or laetrile. And they're not the same as cyanide just because they have cyanide in it. And so in other words, cyanide is an essential component for human life, all life. If you don't have cyanide in your diet somewhere, you're going to die. The question is in what form? And that's how they scare people with the cyanide scare. And so in the amygdalin molecule, these 4 elements are perfectly neutral. They do nothing positive or negative unless the molecule is broken apart and the cyanide is released. And the benzaldehyde, by the way, is also toxic. So the 2 of them together are more toxic than just 2 times. It's like 6 times more toxic. So the question is, you don't want to do anything to release the cyanide and the benzaldehyde, do you? What will release it? Only one thing, it's an enzyme. It's called beta-glucosidase. You don't need to remember that. I just call it the unlocking enzyme. That enzyme is dangerous in the presence of amygdalin. Very dangerous. And where do you find that enzyme? Glad you're all sitting down for this. In cancer cells. And only in cancer cells. It's nature's answer to the problem. It's a beautiful mechanism of nature. It could not have been accidental. Which means that if you're eating foods that are rich in this compound, and you have cancer, it's going to the cancer is going to have the enzyme that will release the cyanide and benzaldehyde and commit suicide. That's how it works. It's a little more complex than that, but it's basically the bottom line. There are other elements. So that's how you protect yourself. Stay away from all those cancer-causing things and make sure that your diet is rich in amygdalin. There's another element. Stay away from fats as much as possible, animal fats. I'll just bore you with it for 1 more minute on that one. The question that's often arisen is, why doesn't the immune system attack cancer? You'd think it would recognize it as an enemy, foreign to the body, but it doesn't. And they've known for a long time why. It's because the cancer cells have a little coating around the outside, protein coating. And that coating has a negative electrostatic charge to it. There's a lot of electricity in the body. You don't think about it, but there's a lot going on there. And this little thin coating, the protein, is negatively charged. And the white blood cells are also negatively charged. Monocytes, leukocytes, lymphocytes, all those sites, negative. Well, negative repels negative. So the cancer is well protected against the immune system unless something takes away that coating. And there is something. It's an enzyme produced in the pancreas. It's a pancreatic enzyme. 2 of them, trypsin and chymotrypsin, very similar. Pancreas produces them and injects it into the intestinal system, and their function is to digest meat protein. Well, if you're eating a lot of meat, and if your pancreas is functioning normally, most of that enzyme, if not all of it, is going to be consumed in digesting the meat in your stomach and in your intestines, actually, your intestines. And there'll be nothing left over. But if you don't eat a lot of meat, then those pancreatic enzymes are left over, and they go through the blood system, and they'll reach the cancer cell, and they'll digest away that protein coating. And now, the charge of the underlying cancer cell is positive. Positives attract negatives. And now, the bugle sounds for all those white blood cells, and they come and they attack the cancer cell. So that's why another tip is, don't be a huge meat eater. And in fact, anybody that has clinical cancer that goes to a doctor who knows about these things, first thing they do is say, get off of meat, all meat. And that's the reason for it.